What if one random act of kindness could uncover a buried family secret, reunite a broken father and daughter, and change the course of 3 lives forever? Every day at 3:15 p.m., a blind girl walked into a quiet seaside cafe in California and sat at the same table by the window waiting. She didn't order much, just a coffee, but a young waitress struggling to support her brother and drowning in her own grief brought her full meals in secret. Why, no one asked, not even the girl. But then, the limousines arrived. 3 sleek black cars pulled up outside the cafe one morning, and inside stepped a mysterious man with a haunted past and a face the waitress had never seen yet somehow felt familiar. Within moments, names were spoken that hadn't been heard in years. Tears were shed, and truths began to rise from the shadows. Truths that had been buried beneath betrayal, scandal, and a father's final promise. What did this waitress really mean to the girl? And what was the real reason her father had disappeared? You won't believe how it all unfolds. Watch until the end, because the final twist changes everything. Every afternoon at exactly 3:15 p.m., the bell above the door of the Seaside Brew Cafe chimed, and in walked a little girl with jet black hair, dark sunglasses, and a white cane, tapping gently in front of her. Her name was Chloe Walker, and she always took the same seat by the large bay window facing the crashing waves of Santa Barbara's coastline, even though she couldn't see them. Emily Carter, the 28-year-old waitress with tired eyes and a heart far too big for the small cafe she worked in, noticed every detail. She noticed how Chloe's fingers brushed the rim of her cup to feel its warmth, how her head tilted ever so slightly when someone nearby smiled, and most of all, how she always ordered just a cup of coffee, yet left with a full plate. Again, Emily Mimis. Nancy, the grizzled owner of the cafe, crossed her arms as she watched Emily slide a plate of warm, grilled cheese and tomato soup in front of Chloe. "You're giving her free meals again." Emily glanced up nervously. "No, ma'am, I'm paying for it." Miss Nancy sighed. "And how are you going to help your brother pay for college if you keep spending your tips on this girl?" But Emily didn't answer. She turned back to Chloe, knelt beside her, and whispered, "Today's surprise from the chef is extra cheesy. Let me know if it's too hot." Chloe grinned, her voice full of warmth. "It already smells like a hug. What makes a person choose kindness when the world doesn't reward it? And how long can someone carry the weight of generosity without it breaking them?" Emily hadn't always been this tired. Years ago, her life was full of promise before her parents died in a car accident, and she had to become both sister and mother to Ethan, her bright younger brother. Since then, she worked double shifts, skipped meals, and stretched every dollar just to keep him in school. And yet somehow she found the time to care for Chloe. "You have a gift," said Mrs. Nancy one evening as they closed up. "But gifts like yours come with a cost." Emily just smiled. So does looking away when you can help. But what Emily didn't know, what no one could have guessed, was that Chloe's quiet presence would become the thread that unraveled secrets too heavy to stay buried. One rainy evening, Emily offered to walk Chloe home. The girl's grandmother was late again, working overtime at the local laundromat. As they walked through the dimming streets, Chloe asked softly, "What color is the sky right now?" Emily looked up, gray, like a silver coin that's been through too many pockets. Chloe giggled. "Sounds sad, I'll imagine it golden instead." A strange feeling tugged at Emily's chest. "I'll make sure you see it one day, I promise." They stopped in front of a weathered yellow apartment building. Chloe pointed up, "Second floor." "That's us," Emily blinked. "Wait, you live here?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I live on the 3rd floor." They stared at each other, stunned. How had they never crossed paths beyond the cafe? Just then, an elderly woman opened the building's door. Grandma Helen Walker, Chloe's caretaker, had silver hair pulled into a tight bun and a look of sharp curiosity behind her soft smile. "You must be the angel from the cafe," she said, nodding at Emily. "Come in. I've been waiting to meet you." Inside, the apartment smelled of cinnamon and strong coffee. Emily sat at the small kitchen table as Helen poured her a cup. "I know what you've been doing for Chloe," the old woman said without hesitation. "I know you've been feeding her." Emily nearly choked. I didn't mean to offend." Helen reached across the table, placing a gentle hand on hers. "Offend me? No, child. You've saved my granddaughter from hunger more times than I care to admit. You're the reason she still believes the world is kind." There was a moment of silence, and then Helen dropped a name that made Emily freeze. Daniel Walker. My son Chloe's father. She said he used to be someone powerful until someone betrayed him. Emily's chest tightened. That name, why did it sound familiar? He's been in Spain for years now, Helen continued, running from a man who destroyed his life. Logan Pierce. He framed Daniel, stole his company, and left him with nothing. Emily listened, torn between shock and a strange growing suspicion. Why are you telling me all this? She finally asked. Helen leaned closer. Because you're not just some waitress. I see it in your eyes. You care. And soon you're going to learn that your life and Chloe's are more connected than you ever imagined. But what did a blind girl and a broken waitress have in common besides a worn-down cafe and an afternoon meal? That night, Emily lay awake in her apartment upstairs, haunted by a question she couldn't answer. Who really is Chloe Walker? And why does it feel like I've known her forever? We're so sorry to pause the story here, but we'll be back very soon with next part, where secrets start to surface and nothing is quite what it seems. But now let me ask you, have you ever helped a stranger only to later discover that their story was connected to yours in a deeper way than you expected? And what would you do if a simple act of kindness pulled you into a web of family secrets, betrayal, and redemption? Tell us your thoughts in the comments and let us know where in the world you're watching from. If this story touched you so far, please tap the heart and like the video to help us keep telling more emotional, powerful stories like this one. The next morning at Seaside Brew Cafe began like any other, sunlight spilling across ocean blue tiles, the aroma of cinnamon muffins drifting from the kitchen, and Emily wiping down tables with practiced ease. But something in the air felt off, heavier, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. Then it happened. 3 black limousines pulled up to the curb outside the cafe, their engines low and ominous. Emily paused mid-step, heart skipping. Limousines. Here, was it a coincidence or the beginning of something no one could stop? The bell chimed, 4 sharply dressed men entered, but it was the one in front, tall, striking with midnight dark hair, and a gaze like carved stone, who made the air in the room thin. Emily approached him with polite professionalism. Table for 4. The man turned. His eyes met hers, and something inside her shifted. Near the window, please, he said. His voice was smooth but carried a kind of power that didn't need to be loud to be felt. As she led them to the table, Emily caught fragments of conversation. Excellent location. Daniel, solid investment opportunity. Tourist traffic is up. Pierce will lose his mind. Daniel. Her steps faltered. Daniel Walker. Could it be? Was this man the father Chloe spoke of with aching hope finally here? She stole a glance at him as he reviewed the menu. His jawline, his hands, even the way he stirred his coffee. Everything about him radiated quiet intensity. But there was something else. A sadness, like a man who had been carrying a weight for far too long. And then, just as Emily returned to refill his water, the cafe door opened again. Bella, Chloe's voice, rang out. She stood at the entrance earlier than usual, cane in hand, her head tilted in curiosity. Daniel froze. His coffee cup stopped midway to his lips. His expression shattered Chloe. He whispered, barely audible. But Chloe heard him. She turned sharply toward the voice. Dad, she asked. Her small voice trembled as if she didn't quite believe the words she was saying. Daniel stood in 2 strides. He crossed the cafe and dropped to his knees in front of her. It's me, sweetheart. I'm here. Just like I promised. Tears blurred Emily's eyes as she watched Chloe reach out, touching her father's face. Her fingers traced his cheeks, his beard. His tears. You changed, she whispered. You feel older. Daniel laughed through the ache. And you've grown taller. The cafe had gone silent. Even the coffee machine seemed to hold its hiss. But while the room felt like a miracle had unfolded, Emily's thoughts raced. Why now? Why here? And how was it that this man, her father's old protege, had walked into her life again through Chloe? Was it all fate or something more? Later, as the lunch rush died down, Daniel asked if they could speak privately. Miss Nancy offered her office. Chloe stayed behind with her grandmother, happily recounting every detail of her reunion, to anyone who would listen. Inside the small office, Daniel leaned against the desk, looking suddenly human, nervous, hesitant. "I owe you an explanation," he began. "You knew my father," Emily said quietly. "Yes, Richard Carter wasn't just my mentor, he was my friend. More than that, he saved me. He believed in me when no one else did. And before he died, he made me promise one thing." Emily's breath caught. "He asked me to look after his children." "You and your brother Daniel's voice cracked. But I failed. I was blindsided. Logan Pierce framed me. I lost everything overnight. When I finally cleared my name and came looking for you, you were gone." I searched Emily. For years, she sat in stunned silence, the weight of those words anchoring her in place. You were the man he trusted most," she murmured. Daniel nodded, "and the man who disappointed him most. But when I saw you feeding Chloe, protecting her like your own, I knew I had to find a way to make things right. For her, for you." Before she could respond, the door burst open. A tall man in a slate gray suit strode in uninvited with a smirk that chilled the room. Well, the great Daniel Walker. Back in town and playing hero, Emily stood defensive. "Excuse me, who are you?" "Logan Pierce," the man said with a mocking bow. "Investor, visionary, former business partner," he turned to Daniel. "And the reason your life unraveled," Daniel's jaw clenched, "you have no right to be here." "Relax, just browsing." Logan ran his fingers along the office desk. "Nice little cafe you found. Shame if something were to happen to it." Emily stepped forward. "This cafe isn't for sale and we don't welcome threats." He smiled coldly. "You're spirited, I like that. Reminds me of your father." Her fists clenched. "You knew him." Logan leaned in. "Better than you did." And just like that, he was gone, leaving a storm of questions in his wake. That night, Emily sat on her bed, unable to shake the dread that had settled into her bones. What had her father been involved in? What secret was Daniel still keeping? And why did Logan speak about Richard with such disdain? Was this about more than business? What if her father's death wasn't an accident? "We're so sorry to leave you hanging again, but we promise next part is coming, and it will answer the questions that are just beginning to take shape. Now tell us, have you ever discovered a truth about your family that changed the way you saw your past? And if someone told you your parent had lived a double life, would you want to know everything or keep the peace?" Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know where in the world you're watching from. And if this story pulled at your heart, don't forget to tap the heart and like the video. It helps us keep these powerful stories coming. The next few days moved like a dream and a nightmare. The cafe buzzed with customers, Chloe laughed more freely than ever, and Daniel stayed in town helping Emily manage the growing attention. But behind all the joy was something darker unspoken, a shadow in every smile. Late one evening, while cleaning up the cafe, Emily found an envelope slipped under the door. Her name was written in all caps. Inside was a single piece of paper with only one sentence. "Ask Daniel about the Blue Tide Project. Some secrets are worth millions." Or lives. Emily's hands trembled. The name meant nothing to her, but somehow it felt like a warning, a test, a key. What would you do if someone handed you a truth you didn't ask for, one that could unravel everything you had just begun to rebuild? That night, unable to sleep, she called Daniel. His voice came through quiet but steady. "I hoped you wouldn't find out this way." "Then tell me," she whispered. "What is the Blue Tide Project?" Daniel hesitated. It was a beachfront development, luxury resorts, Logan Pierce's golden goose. But it was built on lies, bribed officials, forged permits, environmental damage. "And my father," she asked, heart pounding. "Richard discovered it. He was gathering evidence to stop it. He pulled me in, asked me to help. That's why we spent so much time together. We were building a case." Emily felt her world tilt. Was that why he died? We never proved it was foul play, but the accident happened just days after he told me he was ready to go public. Then the files disappeared. The case collapsed. I was framed, and everything fell apart. Emily pressed her hand to her chest, barely able to breathe. "Why didn't he tell us he was protecting you?" Daniel said gently. "He knew if he told you, it would make you targets. He asked me to keep you out of it." "I tried. But a failed silence filled the space between them, and then Daniel added almost in a whisper, "There's something else." He met her the next morning with a letter, yellowed paper, familiar handwriting. "Dear Daniel, if you're reading this, it means something's gone wrong. Please take care of my children. Don't involve them unless you must. But if the time comes, tell them everything. I did it all for them. With trust, Richard Carter." Emily cried, reading the words. Her father hadn't abandoned her for his work. He had fought for her, for Ethan, for a future they didn't even know was being threatened. Suddenly, the anger she'd carried for years turned into something else. Pride, grief, love. But just as the pieces began falling into place, Logan Pierce returned. This time he wasn't smiling. "You think the story ends here," he said, cornering Emily outside the cafe. "You think the truth wins just because it's true. Get away from me," she warned. "You think Daniel is noble? He was knee-deep in this before your father pulled him out. Ask him what he stood to gain." "Why are you so desperate?" Emily asked. "Is it because you know the tide's finally turning against you?" Logan's face twitched. Then he laughed, cold and hollow, and walked off into the night. And Emily was left with a question she hadn't dared to ask before. Could Daniel have once been part of the corruption before he turned? But when she confronted him, Daniel didn't deny it. "I was young, hungry. I signed on to the Blue Tide Project before I knew what it really was. Your father saw something in me, something I didn't even see in myself. He pulled me out and gave me a second chance. That's why I owe him everything." Emily studied him, his sorrow, his humility, and in his eyes she saw not a perfect man, but an honest one. And somehow that was enough. Weeks passed. Lucia had her surgery in Mexico City. The doctors called it cautiously hopeful. When she returned, she stepped out of the limousine without her cane. "Bella," she asked, blinking in the sunlight, "is that really you?" Tears ran freely down Emily's face. "It's me, sweetheart. I can see you a little blurry, but you're real." The cafe threw a celebration. Friends, neighbors, even Miss Nancy danced around the tables. Chloe played a simple song on the keyboard. Ethan had found secondhand one she composed herself. She called it "The Table by the Sea." And then came the biggest surprise of all. Daniel stood before Emily with 2 envelopes. "One is for you," he said. "The cafe Seaside Brew is officially yours. Ms. Nancy's ready to retire and I've bought it for you." The second envelope, adoption papers. "For Chloe," he said quietly. "If you want to make this official." Chloe looked up, eyes shining. "You've always been like my mom. Bella, can we just make it true?" Emily couldn't speak. She simply nodded as tears spilled over. A year later, the cafe thrived. Chloe became a local piano prodigy, Ethan graduated, and Emily. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a mother, a daughter, a survivor. And in the quiet hours before closing, she would sometimes look out at the ocean and whisper, "Thank you, Dad, because some promises are kept, even after death." We're sorry for pausing the story here. But before we go, let us ask you something. If you had the chance to adopt someone you didn't give birth to, but loved with all your heart, would you do it? And if someone once betrayed their values but risked everything to make it right, would you forgive them? Tell us how you feel about this story. Did it move you? If you loved it, comment no 3 below. If it felt just okay, type no 2. If it didn't connect with you, be honest and write no 1. And of course, let us know where you're watching from. Please give the video a like, tap that heart, and share it. If it touched your soul, we have more heartfelt stories to come, and we can't wait to share them with you.